Okay, I've done some more testing and work. I cut the hole out for the screen and I hot glued it in place so that I know exactly where that's going to go and I can plan everything else around it. For it to go right there, right up against the front of the controller, I've had to cut some of the button pads here in order for it to fit, and also even this D-pad I have had to sand away that side so it's flat on that side so that the screen will fit. But I think it'll still work. The buttons still press okay. I have to find where this button rolled off to, but I think it's all going to work like that. I had thought previously that I would have to cut the middle out of this controller board, but I don't think that's the case anymore because the ribbon cable from the screen comes out the top, and this board fits just fine in there with the cable going over the top. I've tested it, and the micro fits all right in there, and I don't think I have to cut the middle of the board out. The micro board has to sit up against these button boards on either side anyway, so even if I did cut the middle out, I wouldn't be able to use that space for anything. So what I've gone ahead and done, oh, I think I had that upside down. Fits a little better like that. Anyway, I've scraped away the coating for some of these traces for the buttons, and I've soldered wires to them. I've had to kind of maintain a really low profile so that it doesn't, lift the board too high up. But this black blob has some height to it, so I've made sure that everything is no taller than that. And it seems to be okay. I've tested them. Everything works okay. It's just really delicate, small soldering work. Flux is the only thing that makes that possible. In cutting the board, I sort of split the ground into different sections, so I have 2 ground wires to make sure that everything's grounded, but I'll wire those up to the micro board hopefully soon so I can test those, make sure the buttons are working. Some problems I've run into with the screen right here, that sort of gets in the way of the L and R buttons and the posts right there that held the sort of the metal rods that work as hinges for these things. So I went ahead and glued some tack switches to these, and I'll just work something out so that they attach to that, and I'll have to work out something for a hinge. I was thinking about maybe using something that is a strong glue but doesn't dry rigid. It has a little bit of a give to it, so that maybe with that I can glue those on this side and it'll just flex just a little bit so I can push these tack switches down. It's not a lot of distance to activate those switches, so hopefully it'll, I don't know, that saying it out loud doesn't sound like that good of an idea. I'll work out something to mount the L and R buttons. The battery. So with the board right here, how does it go? With this, with that board in place and the micro right here, there's not room on this side. The battery usually goes right here, but there's not room for it to go there and close the thing up. So what I think I'm going to do, I've desoldered the headphone jack. Here it is, and I've sort of just taken off the these are the volume buttons. I went ahead, I just destroyed them because I knew that if I tried to desolder them that I would break something, I would melt something that I wasn't supposed to, because it's just really tiny solder points on those. So I just, broke them off and sanded them down a little bit so that the battery will fit at least right there in a way that I can close the case up. And I'll just clip these wires and just solder in some extensions so that this can still reach over and plug in where the battery plugs in. And hopefully that will work. I really don't want to cut a huge hole in the back for the cartridge, and so I think what I'm going to end up doing is just have it where the back clips onto the front with magnets and just sits there with really strong magnets. And then when I want to change the game, I'll get my fingernail in there, pop the back off, change the game out, and snap it back on. That's sort of a weird way to do it because it exposes all this, all the ugly innards of the thing. But I think that it'll just be so much better looking, don't you think? For it to just be a whole controller you know, to look just like that and not have, I'm scared of how bad it will look, because it'll still, you know, you'll be able to see when the game is out, you'll be able to see some of the innards anyway. That's what I'm going to try to do. Just have it be completely whole, because I've had to do away with most of these screw posts anyway. If the battery goes right here, actually I might be able to keep that screw post, but I've had to, you know, sand down the one that's right here, get rid of these ones that are up here. So at this point, it's just one on that side and one on that side. I'll have to do something to strengthen that anyway. So I'm going to try to go with magnets to hold everything shut, and then just open the whole thing up to change the game. Or maybe I can, maybe a hinge, I don't know. I don't want to cut a hole in the bottom for the game, because this micro board probably won't be perfectly centered anyway. It'll be off center a little bit. It'll look bad if I try to cut a hole. So I've done some extending. I've attached these wires and tinned both ends, so I'm ready to put the headphone jack in there, and I'm ready to wire these buttons up. I decided to use some old GBA SP buttons. I think these are select and start buttons. Where's the other one? Around here somewhere. For the volume buttons, volume up and down, I need to put some volume buttons in there. I've drilled some holes. I figure I can put the headphone jack here and sort of anchor it against this button housing, and then the volume buttons there, and that won't be too in the way while you're playing it, and that will be really close to where the actual contact points are. So I'm gonna go with those holes. I've been, or I did some testing on the power switch, because this power switch is really dirty and gross, and you have to kind of jiggle it to get the thing to turn on. So I thought about opening it up and cleaning it out and desoldering it and reattaching it somewhere else. But I just did some tests on these 4 contact points that come out the back. The middle 2 are continuous, so they might as well be the same point. And the switch, it acts like a single pole double throw switch, meaning, so it's just like this one, which is a little bit easier to see. So there's 3 tabs on the bottom, and if the switch is on this side, then these 2 links on that side are connected, and if you switch it, then those 2 are connected. So I'll connect that middle contact point to these middle points, and it behaves just the same way. So that way I can use this new nice clean clicky switch instead of this sort of dirty one that doesn't, without the full housing in place, it doesn't snap into place. It all just sort of slides there and then eventually turns on. So it'll be good to use a nice new switch for that. I'll probably put it down here somewhere, maybe do something similar to those holes and just mount the switch down there so it's out of the way when you're playing it, but also there's some room right there to put it. The power jack, so this is really dirty, if you can see that, and I thought, okay, I'm going to have to desolder that and soak it in vinegar or something, alcohol, get that clean. And then I thought, well, why don't I just rewire it up? This is a USB micro USB jack that you can buy off eBay. I bought a bunch of these for a different project, and I still have some. These pins, they're really tiny pins on the back, but did some testing, and so there's 5 different pins that come out, because this is capable of doing data as well as power. I'm just going to be using it for power, but one of them is 5 volts in and one of them is ground. I can't remember which one right now, but I'll look that up and just connect them to these points as well. I realize that takes away the game link, the multiplayer capability of this micro, but I don't know. I'm not sad about that. I don't know how many people actually have the adapter to be able to do that with a micro, so I'm not sad about that. So I'm gonna try to do this. You know, it's pretty small solder points there, but I think I can do it, and that way I can just have a nice unobtrusive. I'll have to figure out a place to put that too, but just a nice unobtrusive little micro USB port. That way you know, I can charge. I don't have to have the specific micro charger. If I lose it or if it breaks, then I don't have to worry about that, and I'll have micro USB to charge it. A word of warning, anyone who wants to attempt something like this, the board for the micro, so it's double-sided, there's stuff on both sides of this board, and while I was desoldering the headphone port, I sort of got a sense for just how thin this is. I mean, you can, I could easily just snap that off right there. It's like an old stick of gum. It's you know, rigid, but you could break it off really easily. So be really careful, really mindful if you ever want to do anything with this board, because it was definitely made to be as thin as it could be. I don't know, just a word of warning. Oh, and here's a from that Game Boy Advance SP is also this speaker, which is still good. So here's the contact points for the speaker right there. And the speaker on this one was blown out, so I'm going to try to attach this one and see if that works.